What's going on, guys? And welcome to the very first episode of When the Slipper Fits. I cannot believe we made it this far in the journey. Wow, incredible. So, before we begin our first topic, make sure you click that subscribe button and click the notification bell because you don't want to miss upcoming episodes on what we're going to discuss and talk about. And without further ado, let's get into the video. So, before we get into the episode, let's talk about what this podcast is going to be about. It's basically a godly courtship based off of godly principle mixed in with what you truly desire the most in a fairy tale, like courtship, wedding, relationships, because in today's society and with Satan, it can kind of play tricks on you and you get stuck or stressed or lonely or put yourself down. And that's not what God wants, and that's not what you want. So instead of wallowing and being in despair like Cinderella was, let's be the Cinderella that gets her shoe and gets the Prince Charming that she truly desires. So what does that mean before you get your prince? Well, obviously it means we have to work on ourselves and our character. You have to really dig deep into what you are and what you want in life. So what is that for you? That's the bigger question. What do you want in life? What do you desire in a man? What do you desire in a courtship? What is society telling you that you don't like to hear? What is your friends telling you that you don't like to hear? And better yet, what are your thoughts telling you that you don't want to hear? That's what the podcast is going to be about. And I hope you're just as excited as I am because we're going to talk about 5 different Cinderellas, Esther, and more. So sit back and relax and let's get started. So the very first episode, we're going to talk about obviously the Prince and Cinderella and based on godly format. So the first episode is called He Will Only Have Eyes for You First. The rest we'll see later. Wow. Does that give you shivers or is that just me? So let's go into Brandy Cinderella. Everyone knows the story of Brandy. That was my favorite Cinderella growing up. On top of the 1950s Cinderella, I love the story of Cinderella. Honestly, that's like my favorite Disney movie of all time. So this is why the Lord had placed When the Slipper Fits. So let me stop rambling on and let's get to this podcast. When we first get into the movie of Brandy, she is in the marketplace, basically helping her stepsisters and her stepmother picking things that you really don't want in fashion. I mean, I wouldn't. Think of the hat, for example. It's disgusting. And obviously, they don't have a good background in life. They don't have the people in their life to teach them good, good moral standards, I should say. It's basically you're this, you're that, you're ugly, you're disgusting. And they try to impress anyone because they would like to fit in just as much as any woman does, because who doesn't want a love story? So that's pretty much what I see in them, but we'll talk more about those people later. Cinderella is dreaming about basically being free of her slave and cleaning and wanting to go out instead of being an outcast, being someone important and basically showing off her story. So as she's daydreaming and dreaming about that guy being somewhere, because we all love that song. But my favorite part of the song that they both said is the dearest love in all the world is waiting somewhere for me. Because it's obviously a true statement. If you put your trust in the Lord, the right prince is out there waiting. And you don't have to chase after him to know who he really is. So as she's dreaming, this guy appears. Well, we all know it's the prince. But the townspeople do not know it's the prince. So let's think about that for a minute. If they knew the prince, they would sit there, even if he was in like the nastiest of clothes with holes and everything like that. They would go, "That's the prince," right? But if you look at the movie, it doesn't. They don't have eyes for him. Even the women, if you look at the story, no one's looking at him. No one is taking notice of this guy. So you're sitting there going, "Guys, hello, wake up. It's the prince." But maybe they're not supposed to know it's him yet, because the story hasn't happened yet. So maybe they're not supposed to know what's really going on. They're supposed to wait until God ordains it to be the right time. Does that make sense? Think about it. If it were, let's just say, a regular thing, they would say out of nowhere, without Cinderella knowing, "Oh, that's the prince, I'm going to marry him. That's the prince, I'm going to marry him. I don't care if he's in rags, that's the prince, that's my man." But God blocked them off. So they had no eyes to see. What does it say in the Bible? He will have eyes for you alone, and you will have eyes for him alone. Let's keep going. So as they're both singing the song, they're both dreaming of the exact same thing. God planted that, obviously, in the both of them. They both wanted a life of freedom and to leave. He wanted to leave the palace. He was so tired of the do this, do that, and be a prince and be, you got to marry anyone in the world. Well, he didn't want to just marry anyone. He wanted to marry the right woman. So he left the palace to just escape. So Cinderella's walking, and this carriage comes out of nowhere and dumps everything to the ground. So does anyone help her? One person, the prince. He saw she was in trouble, and no matter what happened, everyone around her did not help her up, did not ask if she was okay. But him. I'm not finished yet. When he helps her, he looks at her and knows in an instant this could be the woman he's supposed to marry. Now, she didn't know he was the prince, so she had no idea who this man was. But she was shy, and she did not know how to really talk to people because she was in her house doing chores and in her own little corner, daydreaming. So with that being said, it's unfolding. So she looks at him and says one of my favorite lines of all. She doesn't know if she really wants to meet this stranger he's talking about. But then she says, "I doubt he has any idea how a girl should be treated." And he says, "Like a princess, I suppose," which is true. We all would love to be treated like a princess. But there are two key ingredients that we also want to be treated with: kindness and respect. And that's what she said. But then he also says, "You're not like most girls, are you? You won't be like all those girls. You're going to be the one that the Lord wants to place at the right time, at the right story, so that you both can share your story together." So he thought he offended her. But then she looks at him and says, "It's just I had a pretty sheltered life." That's when it clicks. They both have a sheltered life. He's living the life of a prince, daydreaming about her, and she is a slave working herself to death in a house with nasty women who are toxic, and she's dreaming about him. They both click. As the stepmother and stepsisters come in, they still don't know who this man is. But he says, "I hope I'll see you again." And he does. That's where the ball comes in. And I'm going to tell you about it in this episode because it all adds up to why they'll know later. So later on in life, we're going to talk more about all of the aspects of Cinderella, but I don't want to go too into detail. I want to get to the happiest parts today to get you the what's really going on in this podcast. She goes to the ball, and you're sitting there going, this is perfect. She gets her dream. She goes to the ball. Everything's going to be great. But the wrong women are in the ball, and he knows it. He's yawning, he's tired, he's bored, he's exhausted. It's because he physically knows they're not the right person. They're not. If they were, he wouldn't be exhausted. And later on, a woman is on the stairs. It's her. And even though he saw her, everyone looks at her. For they know this story just started. They didn't know who this guy was. They moved on in life. The minute the ball comes, she steps out. Now everyone is asking, who is this girl? What does she have that we don't? Why is he looking at her, but not us? What is so important about her? What made it click? What made him click? What made him jump up and run to her and dance the entire rest of the evening? What happened? God. God stepped into the story and basically said this. This is the story that's going to happen. When you are dreaming and praying so much for that kind of a story, don't underestimate God. Because he knows your heart and he knows your story. So let's take a look of the stepsisters and the stepmother and people from today. There will be judging. There will be persecutions. There will be attacks. Why? Because Satan doesn't like a story to unfold, especially the one you've been praying the most for. The stepmothers were furious. She kind of had an inkling of who this woman was. Even before the evening, at the ball, she knew who she was. Satan can do that too. Satan knows your story. Therefore, he's not going to like what comes next. Because it's a testimony that could help many women around the world have their story too. Instead of gloating about it, you share the story. I also want to talk about how a girl should be treated, just like Cinderella said. Let's go back to that topic because a lot of you are going to ask, well, men don't really treat me like that. The wrong men don't. The right men do. They know how a woman should be treated. And the other thing is, don't put God in a box. If he planted a seed of marriage in your life, and specifically a marriage of a guy that he showed you, do not underestimate God. Because that's where Satan kicks in and tells you it's not going to happen when it is. It's that simple. It's going to happen. So how should a woman be treated? With everything going on in the Cinderella movie, what did she mean by how a girl should be treated? Not just with kindness and respect, but with dignity. Let's think about Proverbs. She's far more precious than rubies. That's one of them. You are far more precious than rubies. And you need to take full confidence in that and repeat yourself that you are a woman of God and royalty of God. And no matter what they say, they even can't stop what's coming to you. Just like Cinderella. No matter who was in her face, what happened at the end? She got the prince. Because she waited. It was hard, but she waited for him. She also wants to be treated with love. She wants to feel safe. She wants to feel home. She wants to feel appreciated about her worth, her character, her heart, her confidence, and the beautiful woman she is. It's not about the features and her body. It's about her heart that truly makes a woman who she really is in life. My question is this. Have you ever pulled out a journal and wrote things what you truly want in life? Have you ever wrote things about a guy in your life? How you want him to be? Have you ever wanted to write down not a dream catcher, but a dream list of the things that God has planted in your heart? There are some people in this world that will try to trick you by saying, don't make a list. Okay, I kind of have to agree. Don't make a list and go, God, I want nothing else. Don't say that. But what I'm trying to say is they don't know your story. So who are they to judge? If you came from a very abusive home, an abusive dad, an abusive relationship, there's a reason why you need to make a list. I did. I had an abusive dad who did not care for me. So therefore, I didn't want to get married. But God told me that was my purpose. So I listened and I prayed and I made a list. And I just follow through and tell myself it's going to get better. It's going to be okay. Because the man who has eyes for me alone is the man I know is going to be the key to the testimony and to build up his kingdom forever. So, if you really want to know what that means, I'm going to give you a little sneak peek right now. We're going to talk about Cinderella 3, A Twist in Time, where the stepmother scrambled up Cinderella's story and tried to make it Anastasia's story, marrying the prince and not her, to give them fame, when we know in reality it was never them, it was her. Are you ready for next week's episode? Because I sure am. I hope you guys really enjoyed this podcast, this episode, as much as I did. I really hope that you have a blessed day. And remember one thing, you're worth it. Keep going. Keep telling yourself that this is going to be a story to be all the stories in the world and all the fairy tales. And no offense, it's going to become a legacy. God bless your day, and I will see you next Thursday. Bye!